Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us again today for another episode of Fearless Females. So today we're interviewing Barbara. And you guys know, we talk about AI incessantly. Like every single thing, people are trying to learn how to use AI, how to make it more effective. But the thing Barbara said that really stood out to me is she said, networking is going to become even more critically important as we enter the world of agentic AI. And her theory was that we are surrounded by so much fake, so much artificial intelligence that idea of being real and authentic and connecting with an actual human is going to be important. I don't know about you, but whenever I call any of my back office people, I always get the AI phone tree. I hardly ever talk to a real person anymore. I always get sent through the phone tree before I can get to somebody real. And if all of my interactions are with AI or computer-generated emails and computer-generated blog posts and stuff like that, like where is the real, genuine humanness, that feeling, that trust, that friendship between people? Barbara didn't just think about like success today. She's constantly thinking about where the world is heading next. And the episode isn't just about networking, like collecting business cards. It's about building real relationships and having that real connection, like helping people, being human, creating a community that kind of grows with you throughout your career. And I thought that was so important. The other thing she said that I thought was interesting that kind of goes along with that is when I asked something about her success, she said, who you choose as your partner can absolutely affect your success in life. And she was grateful that she had chosen a good partner, someone who supported and encouraged and helped and, picked you up when you're down. I love that thought because we all know that the people that we surround ourselves with are the people that we emulate, the people that we act like. And whether it's a spouse or a best friend or a parent, like your biggest cheerleader, 100% should have your back. And who you choose to be that person in your life, your person, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference in your career, in your happiness, in your future. And it's something that I hadn't really thought of in that way before. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Let's get started with Barbara. Good morning, Fearless Females. So today we are here with Barbara Pawar. She is the Managing Director of Avanade, and I am so excited. I had the chance to chat with Barbara a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited for you to share your story. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Lorie. I'm really excited to be here.
So my first question is always the same. I'm a reader. I love reading. What is your favorite book?
I love reading as well. My favorite book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. And it's my favorite book because growing up, I loved going to my grandmother's house in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And she was the second youngest of 14, and her older siblings all were born in Italy or on the trip over to New York. And so her and her younger brother were born in New York. And so reading that book, and Francie Nolan, the protagonist, is a very similar age to my grandmother. And it just makes me think of her. And even though I only had my grandmother for a very short time in my life before she passed, that book just reminds me of listening to stories that my grandmother told and learning a little bit about old New York and different stories from immigrant families and those that you may not see portrayed, like in books like The Great Gatsby. So it's a really great story, and I reread it every few years.
Oh, do you? I love this story. I just love the thought of that plucky little tree kind of growing up in the middle of this cement world, right?
Exactly. And it really is a nice metaphor for the girl, Francie, who just came of age during the book and all of the things that she learned and grew, and a tree that you don't really see a lot of in the city, especially then. It was just a great metaphor and a great book.
Yeah, I love that one. I'm glad you suggested it. It bears rereading, I think.
Agreed.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, Barbara. Tell me kind of how you got started. When did you know what you wanted to do? Did you know really young, or did it take a while to get there? Kind of where you're at now and what you're doing. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, and I think I'm very similar to most people that when I was younger, I thought I had it figured out and that I knew what my career journey was, and my passions changed. When I was a lot younger, I wanted to be an accountant, and I loved numbers and systems and processes. My parents were accountants. It was just exciting and interesting to me. And I also had a passion for politics, and I really loved politics. And I volunteered on political campaigns, and I interned for my congressman and my state representative. And I did this in high school and college. And then when I got to college in the middle of my freshman year, I realized politics really is a passion for me, and I should focus on this as my major and as my career. And I studied political science. I worked in the White House. I worked as a lobbyist and in political campaigns. And then after 9 years of doing that in DC, I realized this isn't something that I want to do for the rest of my life. It was a career that was extremely rewarding, but very focused on living in DC. And I knew that my life may take me to other cities, and I wanted a career that was easily transferable. And it's very easy to get disillusioned with politics, no matter what party you're part of. And I really wanted to work in business, and I really loved sales, and I wanted to see if I could be a seller and try sales. And so 9 years into my career, I completely changed careers and went to Bloomberg, and they took a chance on me. There was a new product that was selling proprietary cleansed data to lobbyists and people that are influencing government and selling to government. And so that was a perfect natural fit for me because I had a strong network to sell to. And it was a really exciting time in the business and our economy. This was, again, 2010 maybe, or even earlier. And so it was a great time to start a new career, and I never looked back.
Yeah, that is interesting that, first of all, I haven't met very many people who are like, yes, accounting sounds exciting and I love the numbers.
I know. It was so funny in high school. I think because it was what I knew, and my parents were accountants and they had such a passion for it. And I liked both sides balancing, and it was logic, and it was a process, and there was a right or wrong. And I really liked when I would overhear my dad talking to clients, and they would talk about their business problems and get advice. And I just found that so interesting. But then I quickly realized, maybe I don't want to make a career of it.
Yeah, it's nice and fun sometimes, but yeah, I know I do love numbers, and I love all those things that you're talking about. So the idea of finance is exciting to me, and I love that someone else thought it was exciting too at one point. Maybe not full-time career forever, but it is kind of fun. And then,
Yeah.
So, and then you went into politics for a little while, but it sounds like you made a real conscious decision to make a career pivot at that point. Like, were you just bored with it? Was there any underlying like reason that you were feeling called in one direction rather than the other?
Yeah, I think it was two things. One, having a career that was transferable to other cities, because when you work in politics, it's very focused on living in DC and working in DC. And I loved living and working in DC. I did it for 9 years, but I wanted to expand and move to New York. I knew that eventually I was going to probably live in a different city.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed a career that was going to enable me to do that. And then also I wasn't bored with politics. I think there's always something interesting and new going on, but I got disillusioned. And I felt like no matter what party you're part of, if you don't have that passion for it anymore, and it's not something that feels like you're giving back and you don't feel connected to it, then it's hard to really make a difference. Mm-hmm. And so I found it challenging in that way. And I commend people that dedicate their lives to working in politics, because it really is a hard career trajectory. It's a lot of work and it's very rewarding, but I wanted something, like I said, transferable and something that I could feel like wasn't so focused on so many different personalities and people that are forwarding an agenda that may or may not agree with my agenda. And mm-hmm. so that's what makes it challenging to work in politics. And I really wanted to have a career in sales where I can influence outcomes, I can see results of my work, I can make a real contribution to a business. And in politics, especially lobbying, you can make a significant contribution to a business and help lawmakers shape legislation and really educate lawmakers on how bills they're passing is going to affect their constituents. So it can be extremely rewarding. But you have to make sure that what you're lobbying for, the company you're working for, or the industry you're working for, is something that you truly believe in. Mm-hmm. And we can't say 100% of the time that we agree with 100% of what every politician that we come in contact with that we agree with.
I think you touched on something really important there. And it's not just in politics. I don't think that the fact that you need to align, your values need to align with your career and what you're doing. You
100%.
Know? Yeah, I don't think that is, and especially for the younger generation coming up, they really need to see that they are making a difference in this world and that they're doing something that they believe in. And I found that more and more, women that I talk to feel kind of the same way. Like, we need to feel like we are giving back, like we are doing something important. And if we don't feel like that in our careers, then there's that piece of us that wants to find that place where we will make a difference, right?
Exactly. And I will say that making a difference and having a career that aligns with your values doesn't necessarily mean that you have to find a career where you're in service to others. There's many ways to make a difference and align your values to your career. I just learned that my values were that I wanted to make more of an impact on a business. I wanted to sell products and services and really move the needle in growing a business. I wanted to work for people that I really believed in and I was inspired by. And I saw the power of that working in politics. And I've worked for so many people that were just so inspiring. And I realized that that's a value of mine that's really important. And I think it's also important for younger generations to understand. And, my kids are 19, 17, they're figuring out what they want to do in their next step. And it's okay to change careers. It's okay to change your major. And I don't know too many people that haven't done that. And it's okay to figure out what it is that you feel passionate about every morning. And I know now I'm passionate about making businesses successful, because when businesses are successful and they're making money and they have healthy margins, they're able to hire, they're able to invest in their employees, and it helps our economy, and it just enables so much of what we do. And that is something that's really important to me. And so I think going through that when I was younger enabled me to get to that point and realize that, yes, these are my values, and it's totally okay that those are my values.
I love that. I love the way you frame that. I'm just resonating so much with you as I am listening to where your passions lay, because mine lay in empowering women financially, empowering women to have a voice in their career, empowering women to grow in all different ways. And I found a place that really fits well for me to create that environment. And I love that you talked about your journey from, something that you really did think politics was like your forever job sort of thing. You really did think that was where you were going to spend the rest of your life, but then finding that things change, along the route, and that your path lie in a different direction. And I love that sense of change and that sense of purpose. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah, it's fun, and it can be scary, but it's important to be able to take those calculated risks, especially when you're younger, if you know it's going to lead you to a better place and you're going to be happier. And I think that's really important, especially for women.
Yeah, exactly. Barbara, what is the best investment you've made in yourself as you kind of look back over your whole journey? Is there one thing that you can say, oh my gosh, I'm really glad I invested time, money, energy, myself in this one thing, because it made all the difference?
Yes. If I have to say one thing, my answer is going to sound very controversial.
Okay.
I would say the most important thing, if a woman wants a partner, and if you want a partner in life, spouse or just a life partner, I think who you choose as your partner is so critically important, because you want someone that's going to help foster your goals. Your goals are aligned. They're going to support you in wanting to grow in your career, if that's something that you want as a woman. And so I think if someone, and this goes for men too, if you want a partner, I think the best investment I made is making sure that I found the right partner. And I'm so grateful for that. I didn't get married until I was 37. And I think who you choose as a partner can absolutely affect your success in life, financially, in your career. And I think it's important for women to be empowered financially. And I think it's really important, the work that you're doing, educate women on financial independence, empowerment, because you want to have that regardless of whether you have a partner or not. And it's important to start that as soon as you start working. I mean, we started accounts for our kids, so they start their retirement now before they even started working. I think that's really important. And all women should have that financial plan and independence, and have that regardless of a partner. But the best investment I made is making sure that I knew that I wanted to have a partner in life, and I chose someone that just really aligns with my goals and helps support me in my career, and I do the same for him. And I think that's really important and something that we don't talk enough about when we're talking about careers and women elevating in their careers. We don't talk enough about the importance of, if you want a partner, making sure that you find the right partner, because it does affect your success.
It does. That is, and it's so interesting, Barbara. I actually have never heard that answer before, and I've done like 130 podcasts or something like that. And it really, it doesn't take more than 3 seconds to think about it and know that what you said is true. You need somebody who is supporting and helping and understanding and pushing a little bit you to be better and do more.
Exactly. Because there's so many things I think about myself. I like to think that I am a confident, independent, successful woman. With that being said, there's so many things that I've learned in my career that has got me to this point. So many things that I wish I could have done differently, things that I didn't know at the time and wish I did. And just having someone that has a different perspective sometimes to help give you some guidance. Example, there was a role that I really wanted, and it would have been a promotion. It was based in Austin. I live in New York, and I wasn't able to relocate to Austin. And I was telling my husband about this opportunity that, I really wish that I could go for this promotion. And he said, well, just be upfront, let them know that you'll travel to Austin every week, but apply and interview for it. But just be upfront about what the limitations are. So I did. I interviewed. It never would have occurred to me, because we always hear the statistic, women do not apply for jobs unless they meet most, if not all, of the criteria. But once I had that suggestion, I thought, okay, yeah, I'll just be upfront and let them know that I can't relocate, but I'll be there every week and apply anyway. I didn't get it. They absolutely wanted someone in Austin. But 3 months went by, a similar role came up, and I didn't have to interview for that role because I was already inclined for the previous role, so they didn't have to re-interview me. And I was able to get that role. They didn't even have to post it. And had I not interviewed and applied for that previous role, they would have never known that I was interested, and I would have had to just interview for that next role. Who knows if I would have gotten it. And so that is just one example of ways that, I learned something from my husband, and I do the same for him, and we learn a lot of things from each other, and I support him in his career as well. And so I think that's an important part of being successful, because you're going to stay at a job for a few years, but you're going to have your partner for the rest of your adult life. And so that's going to affect a lot of your success in life.
Yeah. And where you get and how far you get, and whether you feel supported, and quite frankly, if you're raising a family, you need that support in order to do the things that you do, in order to be both a wife and a mother and successful at your career. So
Exactly.
I think it's so interesting that I've never heard that answer before, and it's such an obvious answer. I love that. Thank you, Barbara.
Of course.
So, did you ever get some really bad advice? In fact, what is the worst advice you've ever been given? And did you take the advice or not?
And I love this question because it really makes me think, because I've gotten so much advice over the years. And
Yeah.
yes, when I was starting out in my career, I was doing a lot of networking, and, I was 21, newly graduated. I didn't have an extensive network, but the network that I did have, I was leveraging. People that I met in DC through my internships, people that worked for my university. I went to UCF, and UCF employed a lobbying team in DC. I met with the lobbyists there. I really leveraged the network that I had. And then I also talked to recruiters. And recruiters weren't as common back then, because back then you could just apply for a job on the company's website that you're interested in and get the role. If the company posted jobs on their website. If not, there were different listservs that you could use to find out about roles. But I did meet with a recruiter that was posting a number of entry-level jobs. And I told her that through one of these listservs that I heard about from my network, I was interviewing for a role at the White House. And I was really excited about it. And I thought she would say, "Oh, well, that's great. Good luck." And she said, "You don't want to work at the White House. You're not going to get any good experience there. They have so many interns, and the interns do all the work. You're not going to learn anything working in the White House." And I was so shocked by this. And I thought, well, how could I not learn anything working in the White House? Like, if anything, it just looks cool on my resume. If I don't learn anything, it doesn't matter. I mean, I was 22 at the time. And so I did not take that advice, thankfully, but it absolutely sat with me. I mean, I'm sitting here 22 years later and still remembering this conversation very vividly in her office. And so, yes, sometimes people give advice, and it taught me to figure out why the person was giving that advice, because I didn't realize that at the time, because I didn't understand how recruiting worked. She wanted me to go on interviews for her clients so she could place me at one of her clients and get a commission and close a deal. So of course, that would be the interest in discouraging me from interviewing at the White House, but I wasn't curious at the time. I just thought, well, I don't care. I'm just going to do it anyway. And I'm glad that I did, but it was interesting looking back how bold and confident that advice was.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that you mentioned that it showed you how to really look at advice and kind of decide whether that advice was right for you or wrong for you. Be very particular about that, because there's all sorts of people willing to tell you what they think. And sometimes sometimes it's very good advice for another person, but maybe not the best advice for you. And I think learning young how to parse out which is advice that you should be taking and which isn't. And I actually don't know how to do that. Like, is there a trick?
I think it all depends on who is giving the advice, because I still get a lot of advice even to this day, because I seek out coaching and development, and I've built my network over the years. And a lot of times I notice that, for example, if you are looking for a role, I had a man say to me, a CEO, "Oh, just wait for someone to call you in your network and you'll get a job." And yes, that happens a lot for men. And yes, I could absolutely just sit back and wait for the phone to ring. But in this market, and not having that same level experience as the CEO, and being a woman where networking is just a little bit more challenging. I knew that that advice was absolutely very good advice. It just didn't necessarily apply to me. I was someone that didn't have as much experience as he did. I didn't have as big of a network. So I was going to have to be proactive in reaching out to my network versus just waiting for the phone to ring. And so I think my trick is realizing, is the advice that the person is giving me, does it apply to me, or is the person speaking from their own experience? And is my experience close enough to that person's experience? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's not, because I'm seeking advice from people who are much more successful than me and seasoned. And so they're going to have a perspective that is working for them, but I may not be at that place yet. And so there's things that I may have to do differently. So that's the trick that I use before deciding if someone's advice is relevant, because it doesn't mean that the advice is bad advice. It can be absolutely very good advice. It just may not be something that's going to work for me because our experiences are so different.
Yeah, I find that really insightful. And I think that's true, is you kind of look through, well, I don't believe anyone gives advice trying to cause problems or give you bad advice. I have a much rosier picture of the world than that, and I prefer to live in that bubble. But I do think that sometimes they give advice that is good for them and worked for them, but may not work for you. So you have to be really careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I meant earlier when I said networking can be a little bit more challenging for women, what I've noticed in my career, especially in the last few years, with the job market being so challenging, relying on your network is so critically important. And with men, what they do so well is they bring people along with them. And a lot of times it's other talented men that they've worked with. And a lot of male leaders do bring women along, but I've just noticed that sometimes it's easier. We have that unconscious bias. When you have a female leader, a lot of times you see a lot of great female leaders on their leadership team. And I have not had the experience of someone just calling me and saying, hey, I have a great job for you. I'm going to another company. I'm going to take you with me. Or, hey, I'm going to start a new role. I think you would be a great fit for it. And so I think women, as we network more, we become more senior in companies and take on more C-suite roles. We take on more CEO roles, more board positions. I think that's naturally going to happen for us as well. We'll bring other women along with us. But that is something that I've noticed that men do so well, is that they are very good about taking care of their network and bringing people along with them. And a lot of times it just happens to be men because those are the leaders that they've been working with for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. It begs a subject of a webinar or something like that as to how do you develop these networks where you bring a woman along,
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up because when I was at Amazon, I founded the Women's Advocacy Circle because there was in our sales organization, which was maybe 300 people, there weren't women sales leaders. And for roles that required certain level of leadership, there was relocation requirements. And relocation can be harder for women who have a partner that also work. But if a man has a partner who does not work, then relocation may not be as challenging. So things like that. And I had an amazing leader, this guy, Jeff Orr, phenomenal sponsor for women leaders, has promoted many women, and a couple of colleagues and I brought this idea to him, and he was our founding executive sponsor. And it was a great opportunity for us to make a few changes. We created a system where anytime a woman interviewed for a role, she would interview with at least 2 women, so she wasn't meeting 6 men. And we created programs where if there was leadership roles available, we would post them, we would encourage women to apply, and really got clear with what we needed to do to ensure that we have a more diverse leadership team. And a lot of that was developing skills, because you don't want to promote someone that's not ready or doesn't deserve that next level. You want to promote people that really should be at that level and are already operating at that level. And so we wanted to make sure that if there was any gaps in anybody's skill level, whether male or female, that we're addressing that. So when these roles do open up, it opens up a lot more professionals that are eligible to apply for those promotions. And now the Women's Advocacy Circle, there's over 1,000 members, and there's monthly events, and it's just really exciting to see the growth of that. And it started from, and what we put in our business plan was a McKinsey study. And they do a study, Women in Work, and it's a study that they do every year. And that year, and I believe it was 2021, they talked about how you need to have more women at the frontline leadership level. If you don't have enough women at the frontline leadership level, frontline managers, junior managers, you're not going to have a leadership pipeline for CEO. And so fostering that middle tier of managers and getting women skilled to be able to be competitive, to apply and get those roles, is critically important. And so that's what we based the business case to start the group, was based on that study. And so I think that's something I think about all the time. Like, yes, we need to have more women on boards and in C-suite. We also need to have more junior leaders in those frontline manager roles, so we consistently have a leadership pipeline to promote.
And help them, teach them the skills that they need, teach them what they're going to need to move into those upper levels. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. And what a difference. That's kind of neat to actually look back and say, I helped start this group. I helped make a difference in 1,000 women's lives. How neat.
It's very rewarding, but I didn't do it alone.
Yeah. We usually do tend to work with other really talented people too. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I'm very grateful to 2 of my colleagues at the time, Ann Barker and Alexis Cosmore. I just called them one day and said, hey, I just woke up thinking of this idea. And we ideated. They made the idea better. We put a business case together. We went to Jeff, and he was all over leading it for us. And I think that's important, is that as women, no matter what we want to do, no matter how fearless we may be, we can't do things alone. We need to have a network to ask for help and accept that help, because there are people that know more than us and can help make whatever idea we have that much better. And I think that's a big lesson I learned.
Yeah, I love that. That is, and I think it's an important lesson too, to just that to ask. A lot of times we're reluctant to ask for the help, and just asking, just saying, "Hey, you probably can I take you out to coffee? Can I take you out to lunch? Can I just pick your brain a little bit?" People are willing, but we
They do
have to
want to
ask.
help.
Mhm.
Exactly.
What about situation that you can think of along your path where you're like, "Oh, if I could go back and do that again, I would do it totally differently." Knowing what I know now, I understand that you're not going to do things differently if you go back with the same information. But knowing what you know now, is there a situation that you would like to have a do-over?
Yeah, I think about that a lot because one thing that I'm proud of is that, and keeps me at peace, is that I don't have any regrets in life. But there are things that I learned a lot from, and I wish I could have done differently. And I think once I got to a place where I was leading a large sales organization and I was coming in as a new leader, I think it's very easy to feed into the pressure that you get from your leadership to move fast, make those changes. And it is important to do that. But I think it's even more important to take a step back and really foster the top performers. And no matter what your leadership is telling you, spend time whenever you start a new role, find out who those top performers are. And leadership may give you a very different answer than what the data tells you, or different leaders may have a different perspective. Find out who all of the top performers are and spend time with those people and get those people on your side and get those people to help you make the changes across the entire organization and have those people really be your leaders. And they don't need a leadership title to be a leader. The fact that they're a top performer means that they're a leader. And I think that's something that I wish I did differently. The first time I came in to leading a large org, and I felt that pressure to make those changes quickly. I was focused on executing what I was supposed to do and what I was told to do by my leadership team. And sometimes you can alienate some top performers that really worked hard even before you got there. And so that was a lesson for me and something I wish that I could do differently. And there were a lot of things that I did to finally figure out, oh, these people are an amazing resource. I'm going to leverage them to help me as being my partner in making these changes. And now, when I do take on new teams, new orgs, new roles, that's one of my first things that I do, is really work with those top performers and have them understand, hey, I'm here working for you. I want to understand how we can work together to make this business better, not just for you, but for everyone else. And so that's something that I've learned in my career that I now take with me.
Yeah. I love the way you put that, because I have found myself in those positions where I'm new in a position and I have kind of a leadership or a move the organization forward mandate, but you've got to understand what is happening now. And a lot of times, the people that are doing the jobs, they're the ones who know what needs to be done, right? And so if you come in and start making changes, you get a lot of pushback and a lot of friction. But if
Exactly.
you partner, it can not only move the organization forward and move it forward faster, but it makes everyone who works in that organization kind of row in the same direction and be on the same page. It's really it's transformational.
Exactly. And you want to make sure when you're doing these transformations that your top performers stay. And that's a critical component of the success is if they're contributing to the business and they're well-liked, they're good colleagues, you want to retain those people. And it's important to have them on your side.
Barbara, if you could go back and high five yourself for a really great financial decision in the past, what would that be?
Think investing and saving early on in my career. I started my 401k as soon as possible. And outside of my 401k, I started an investment account, a brokerage account, and worked with my financial advisor that I've had almost 20 years and focused my time and my energy in making sure that I was financially independent so that no matter what life throws at me, that I would be able to be okay. And I'm still carrying that on now and still investing and saving every month. And I think that's something that's very important to me. And I actually learned it from the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
I read that book in college and realized this makes a lot of sense. This is a great personal finance book that applies no matter what your financial situation is. And so there's a lot in that book that I still apply today, including driving a used car.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think my dad was the rich dad that taught me that. But
exactly.
I love
it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, that's great. What about any unique challenges as you're coming up the path? Were there unique challenges because you were a woman?
Yes. I think what we talked about a little bit earlier with the networking, I think, men do a good job of bringing people along. And I think sometimes it's just slightly different for women. We don't have that same network because a lot of our leaders there's not as many women CEOs in the C-suite as there are men. At least there isn't in technology or professional services or finance, where I've spent time in my career. And so I think other unique challenges was that there are opportunities, I think, for women to network and come together. And there's a lot of really great organizations like Chief or Luminary, where it focuses on women executives supporting each other. Where I think women need to focus is also making sure that we don't miss the conversation with men. And so since there's men in decision-making roles and men that are hiring for roles, I think it's important to continue to build a diverse network, including networking with men, because if we are only talking to other women, we are missing a lot of the population and a lot of the leadership network that we can leverage and a network that we can help. And so I think that's something that's critically important. And a trick that I've learned when I'm with men and they're talking about sports, and if they're talking about specific teams, I sometimes ask them if they're from that city, and chances are they're usually from that city if they're a fan. And I've probably have been to that city. And so I start talking to them about that city and restaurants I like in that city. And that kind of helps change the conversation. So now we're talking about restaurants and traveling. And no one even noticed that I hijacked the conversation away from sports. And so that's a trick that I've developed over the years.
I love that. I have
to
the
just
worst time.
contribute more.
I have the worst time even figuring out my joke is like, I don't even know what size ball they play with. Is it like the big ball that you bounce on the ground or the little ball that you hit through the, so I love that idea.
And there's a lot that I've learned over the years, just from my husband, for example, but I think it's a good way to kind of take a conversation that only 2 or 3 people can participate in, and now the whole table is participating because everyone can relate to travel or restaurants and food and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than that, I think it's important if we're women, if there's challenges that we're facing, to continually believe that we're probably not the first that has experienced that. And being able to talk to other women is important. So that's why I am grateful for organizations that focus on women executives. But I can't stress enough the importance of having a diverse, all-gender network.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. And I mean, just to go back and highlight that the women's organization that you helped start at Amazon, the fact is that you guys saw a need, you saw some ways that you could make a difference, and you tried to make a difference in that space. I think that it's important that you stand up and do something about it. If you see a need, if you see something, what is it they always tell you? See something, say something, sort it, right?
Exactly. And it's so true. And I think if you have data and you have a strong case as to why, and you have supporters in leadership that will help you make it happen, and those with influence that can help propel your ideas, absolutely do it. Because there's other people that didn't advance an idea, and they will be grateful to you for advancing your idea.
What is the thing, Barbara, that you are most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of, and again, this is a non-career answer. I've been a stepmom almost 10 years, and I think I'm most proud of my relationship with my stepkids. I think it can be very challenging to be a step-parent, especially when you have a career and you're trying to develop in your career, but you also want to develop relationships with the little people in your lives that are going to become, the most important people in your lives. I think that can be really challenging, and I'm just very grateful to them for the grace they've given me, and then also how open they were to me, because there's a lot of things about being a step parent that apply to being an executive. And there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of decisions that are not yours to make because they're not your biological kids. And so it is a lot of application to my life as an executive. And there's so much that I learned in being a step parent. And so that, I think, is what I'm most proud of. And I am grateful for them, and I'm grateful for how much they've taught me. And I've noticed that it's definitely helped me in my career, and just the skills and being more collaborative and understanding different perspectives. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I like that. I like that thought that some of the skills that you learn in personally, raising kids and helping them become better human beings, successful human beings. Those are some of the same things you take into your career, and one job informs and helps the other.
Exactly. And you're always learning as a parent or as a step parent. And I think that it's definitely enabled me to contribute in a way that I never thought that I would before. And it's just really rewarding.
Any advice, Barbara, for a young lady who's kind of just starting down this path that you're so successful at to help her be successful like you?
Oh, thank you for that. Network. I think if I were to say, where have I gotten the most opportunities in life? It's through networking. And it's very easy, no matter what your age, career level, to network. Think about your friends' parents, places that you've interned, people who work in the alumni office, the career office of where you go to school, the places where you've worked in the past. All those people are part of your network. You should be connecting with those people on LinkedIn and writing a thoughtful connection request message, posting relevant topics on LinkedIn. All of that is really important in fostering your network and always finding ways to be helpful to people. If someone asks for help, give that help. There's so many things that we could do to easily help each other. And my biggest advice for anyone young is network and help each other. And if I think about where have I found jobs, where has my husband found his jobs, how I met my husband even, has all been through networking. And I think networking is going to become even more critically important as we enter a world of agentic AI, and agents and super agents are replicating a lot of tasks that used to be more manual, or not even replicating, but just completely replacing. And the future of work is going to be much more dynamic for humans, and it's going to be so different. And there's going to be more of a need for collaboration and sharing of ideas to advance technologies. And that's all going to happen through your network. And finding those opportunities are going to be through the people that you know. And so that's my biggest advice.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for spending some time with us and just sharing your thoughts and your experience. I really have appreciated it. It's been a great conversation. I promised you it would at the beginning, and it has been a great conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Lorie. It was really great talking with you. And thank you so much for all you do to help women become fearless and empower them. We all appreciate the work that you're doing. Thanks for having me.
No problem. If you do have a young lady who wants to reach out to you, how does she get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. I can be found by my name, Barbara Pawar, on LinkedIn, and send me a message, and I'm happy to connect.
Thank you. Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks, Lorie.